Hello everyone, Dr. WWW Ping Ponage here, and today we are going to finally discuss the pros and cons of the Valve Index versus the Quest 2. For those of you with short attention spans, the first question is, does having a computer make a difference in, will it make me a better player? The answer is probably yes, okay? And then the second question is, which is the best headset, the Oculus Quest 2 or the Valve Index? The Valve Index is the best headset for this game. It just period, okay? However, next question is it worth the upgrade? And then we get into the little bit more nitty-gritty. The Valve Index is better for slower players with slower play styles, but the Quest 2 is better for players with fast play styles, okay? And we'll talk about that. And then finally we'll discuss the pros and the cons of these headsets. So once again, if you can't stick around through this video, I just answered all your questions straight out. But this video is a coffee talk video. I've got my coffee. This video is meant to be pretty much a podcast. Play this while you're driving, while you're in the shower, or you're just you're doing chores. I listen to YouTube videos while I'm doing chores. So we'll get to it. As a scientist, it's always important to disclose my background because there's bias in any video, especially when doing these kind of comparison videos where I'm not doing some kind of scientific comparison, right? And so my background is I'm a semi-pro. Actually, I don't think I've told anyone this. I'm a semi-pro Counter-Strike player, or at least I used to be when I was age 13, okay, age 12. And that's when Counter-Strike almost first came out. It was in its beta version long time ago, right? I'm 35 now, and so I started off doing that. That was the first serious, well, I played all sorts of games, Diablo, all the floppy disk games, Duck Hunt, you name it, but that was the first competitive game I got into, and I've always been playing first-person shooters here or there throughout my life ever since. And that's really important to know, because for me personally, and you take this in, I can't play with bad graphics and low frame rate, frames per second. That's just me, because I've been a first-person shooter my whole life, gamer, and so I need smooth graphics, high frame rate to operate at a high level. That's just me, okay? It's been like that for me. And so very important to know. But it's also really important to know, we might as well talk about that now while we are, play styles. When I was young and 13, I played much differently than I do now. When I was 13, I had super fast reflexes, like these other kids in Pop 1. Super fast reflexes. I could think really quick. I could think about 6 different situations when I'm in a battle scenario and choose the best one in like a fraction of a second, right? I can't do that anymore. I have to be a little more strategic, and that's just nature of a normal sport, right? Boxing. You don't see a lot of professional boxers at the top elite level past, their mid-30s. It exists, but it ain't often, and they box a lot different than when they were 20, right? And so very, very similar concept. And that is really important for you to know, because, if you are like my age and up, you shouldn't be trying to play like the teenagers, right? You gotta play differently. It's just how it is. Naturally, the human body slows down after the 20s, and particularly cognitive processing, unless you're keeping it sharp, right? And that's hard to do. So getting to it, we'll get back on topic. The first question is, does having a computer make a difference? Well, there's 3 things we got to talk about when we're comparing all these kind of things together. The first is frames per second, which I live by, and many other first-person shooter gamers do. The second thing is visual clarity, and that really just means how clear is everything to see, so that you're able to recognize enemies, objects, everything. That could mean the distance you're able to see. That could just mean you being able to distinguish between an enemy and the terrain, so visual clarity. The third is lag, or your latency, or your ping, right? Everyone knows that, and they're always concerned about that. All these things you have to consider when considering all these different options. And we're really, in short, going to be talking about the Valve Index, the Oculus Quest 2 Native, the Oculus Quest 2 AirLink, the Oculus Quest 2 Virtual Desktop, and the Oculus Quest 2 Link. And I'll sprinkle the Vario Aero in here a little bit here and there, okay? But the first question is, does having a PC make a difference? And the answer is, oh, hell yes. Absolutely. And that is probably, if you're just coming from a Quest 2, which most of these people who play Pop 1 are, most of you are, what is the first thing you should upgrade to? Well, you can't just upgrade straight to a Valve Index because you need the computer anyways. And so the first thing, if you were really serious about increasing your hardware to become a better player, you should get a computer. Okay, a good computer. You have to have well, for Pop 1, you don't need an amazing computer, but I would recommend a pretty dang solid computer. I mean, you need a mid to high-end graphics card if you want to be rocking the 144 frames per second on the Valve Index. Vario Aero, you need the top of the line because that thing's not even supposed to go to 120 frames per second. Manufacturer says it's 90 frames per second. The Oculus Quest 2, honestly, you don't need the high end. You could be okay with like a mid-grade graphics card and processor. Okay, but anyways, we're not talking about all that type of stuff here particularly. Those can be other videos. Does a computer make a difference? Oh, no, hell yes it does, because you are going to get a large graphics boost, well, frame rate boost. You can go from, if you get this Quest 2, which is native at 72, yes, you can up it a little bit in the headset, but if you get a Quest 2 and you plug into your computer, if you don't know, you can get 120 frames per second through the Oculus desktop app. You just go on the Oculus desktop app, go to device, go to settings, literally the button, click 120 frames per second. Okay, and then you already just almost doubled your frames per second, and that's fantastic. You can increase your graphics resolution. There's a slider in the same menu, so you'll get better graphics quality. You'll be able to see further. It'll look clearer, right? And so you can do that with a link cable, right, plugged into your computer. Two other options: you can use virtual desktop or AirLink, and those can be wireless connections to your computer. That technology is fascinating. That stuff was not possible just several years ago. Very cool. And so those are also ways you can do the same thing. Okay, so does having a computer make a difference? Oh, hell yes it does. Should you do the Oculus Link? Yes, that is the best out of all three. Okay, so you have the virtual, if you're using the Quest 2, you have link cable, plug-in. You have virtual desktop, which is it's an app that gets installed in your computer and your headset, and it sends essentially data through your Wi-Fi connection at your home. You need a really good Wi-Fi router, and you just need low traffic. It's actually pretty hard and fickle to set up. AirLink is easier to set up, but as I've talked about with other people who are into this as well, like you need a strong computer to run it well, like a little bit stronger computer than you would a virtual desktop, but it seems like you don't need a strong Wi-Fi setup, so that's a big plus. Okay, so why is the Link better than the other two? Straight out, why is Link better than the other two? Well, the Link cable gives you the graphics, the visual quality, the same as they're learning the virtual desktop, assuming you're able to get your settings perfect and maximize those other two methods. However, doing AirLink and virtual desktop adds lag. It adds latency. I just figured out the best setup for virtual desktop, and I might do another quick update video for virtual desktop with my Quest 2 where I am pulling ultra graphics, and this is obviously with a high-end computer, 3080 Ti and like the latest processor, Intel processor, but I'm able to get ultra graphics on virtual desktop at 120 frames per second, but I'm actually having a stable frame rate, mind you. It's actually really stable, but I'm getting 30 milliseconds added onto my lag. 30 milliseconds, which is really not much, right? And it's not. It really isn't much. And so that 30 milliseconds, the way I like to think about it is, okay, let's say I have a 70 ping in game. You check your menu in game, you have 70 ping. I just add that 30 to that 70, and that's kind of what I figure. It doesn't work like that, I know. But it adds a little bit of lag. So in a perfect world, the cable's better. But then having the cable sucks because this headset's not really made for the cable, so it plugs in kind of weird. If you get used to that, that's fine. But when I play on the Quest 2, the whole point of the Quest 2 is you don't need a cable, right? And like that's the beauty of it. The tracking is just so fantastic. You don't want to use a cable. So the Quest 2 naturally, I feel like that when you shouldn't be playing with a cable. So I prefer, virtual desktop, AirLink, whatever. I prefer virtual desktop. It just works better for me. But I finally got it smooth, and that's the way I play on the Quest 2. Okay, so long story short, AirLink's the best option because it'll give you the graphics, the frame rate, the 120 frame rate, but the problem is it gives you a little bit of latency. Now, like that latency is nothing for most people, right? I'm not supposed to name names, but some of the best players, some amazing players play on like high ping because they're from other faraway countries, right? And they're still amazing, and they just avoid certain guns, but regardless, the like 30 milliseconds is nothing is what I'm trying to tell you. But I notice it, and it's just I'm really like a min-maxer. Min-maxer is like a jargon for you play a game. Like if I play like a role-playing game, like I'll spend like 3 hours creating my character because I want it to be perfect. It's just stupid, like Skyrim. I can spend hours just making my character, and so I'm a min-maxer. 30 milliseconds honestly is really nothing, though. You can get used to that very easily. Now, the Quest 2, why did I say faster if you have a faster play style? Well, first off, let's get to the Valve Index. So the Valve Index, now we're talking about the Valve Index here. The Valve Index is my current daily driver. This is my current headset that I am using, and I have gone back and forth. If you know me and you've been playing with me, you know this, but every day I'm playing on a different setup. I'm not even joking. So one day I'm playing Quest 2 Link. The next day I'm playing Quest 2 Virtualist. The next time I'm playing Quest 2 AirLink. The next day I'm playing Valve Index at 144 frames per second. The next day I'm playing 120 frames per second. I'm never playing stable. And for me, that actually screws me over because, like, I was... me. I was a Sacco like monster, right, on the Quest 2, but then I lost it going to the Valve Index. I keep jumping back and forth, so I never get my Sacco back, and I still honestly don't have my Sacco play back. So I've been switching weapons around a bit, and so anyways, and we'll get to that, and we're kind of comparing headsets right now, but. So I'll get to it, I guess. The Valve Index, right? The reason this has an edge over Yaku's Quest 2 is because of that 144 frames per second. Okay, so you get a little bit more frames. Does that make a difference, honestly? Does it really? And to me, it does. Okay, however, I'm able to notice these things because I change headsets every day, right? So what I'm trying to tell you is that extra 22 frames per second, it actually makes a difference. When I'm on the Quest 2, even at 120 frames per second, stable, I can't really explain to you, but everything is just buttery. That's the term for when you have high frame rate. Everything looks butterier, looks smoother. And so when even comparing 120 frames per second versus 144 frames per second, and this was the last thing I was trying to confirm, at least in my mind, the 144 frames per second honestly feels smoother. So when I'm using an 8K or I'm using an MP5, it almost feels like the bullets come out of the gun smoother. I'm not even joking. And I'm able to, and since it comes out smoother, it doesn't feel like bullets are invisible, if that makes sense. Like here on the Quest 2, it feels like when I'm pulling the trigger, I'm just I'm able to cognitively pick up and visually see maybe 60% of the bullets, and the others are just kind of I'm just praying that it hits. It feels like when I'm wearing the Valve Index, and this is where it's a completely anecdotal, subjective thing, it feels like I feel and see all the bullets that come out of this, and I'm able to control them better. Okay, so my AK aim on this headset, the Valve Index, and my MP5 aim was already really good on the Quest 2, right? But on the Index, my aim with those two weapons in particular, the automatic weapons, including the P90, and I did do that P90 masterclass on the Valve Index, it's all better on the Valve Index because of that extra 20 frames per second for me, okay? And that doesn't mean it's going to be like that, but you can get totally fine with, the Quest 2, like I was saying. But that's just me, okay? So does it have an edge? And that's where I see it has an edge, okay? And that's the biggest benefit, period, okay? That extra frames per second. And that, if you don't have a computer that can, damn it. So like, once again, the benefit of having the valve index over the Quest 2 is just that extra 20 frames per second, right? Does that make that big of a difference? My honest answer to you is no, but to me it does, because, like I said, I have these things. I'm just able to min-max between them, okay? And so what else is good about the valve index and compared to the Quest 2? Well, the answer is the audio. I don't need another audio solution. These things are just fine for picking up the footsteps of my enemies. And I'm able to, just by listening, right, I'm able to pinpoint where everyone is, on the map. The Quest 2, and even, Spray and Pray was telling me yesterday, he's like, I had no idea we were playing a tournament, and we actually got first in our bracket in purple division, which is awesome. But he was like, I didn't mean to charge them there. Like, I just didn't hear them there. Like, they, like, people in this Quest 2, when I don't have my headphones in, like, people can be right behind me and I just can't hear it sometimes, so you need another audio solution for the Quest 2 if you're serious about, picking up on that audio. So, like, the Logitech earbuds are really good for the Quest 2. But what else is good about the valve index? Well, to be honest, if you have a PC and you are doing something with the Quest 2, it's really just the frame rate and the audio, okay? But there's something interesting about the valve index, okay? So this is where it gets into the benefits specifically for Pop 1. So the DT, for me, the AK and the P90, the full auto guns, and the op are so much better on the valve index, okay? So the op. Why the op? Okay, so for some reason, even when I'm doing, PCVR, Oculus Quest 2, for some reason, when I'm on the valve index, when you zoom in on the op, you have that black screen, right? Or everything goes black, right? And then you see the scope kind of go in. Well, that black screen goes away. It goes in faster. Like, the zoom thing just goes so quick that you're able to see it faster and thus react to it faster and shoot to it faster. Okay, so what does that mean? It means that you're getting more frames per second, so that the zoom screen comes into the center of the screen and you're able to see it sooner. And the funny thing is, I was actually testing this out yesterday. You're actually able to see it sooner than you are to fire it and for it to count registered as a scoped shot. Okay, that was complicated. What does that mean? So when you're doing a quick scope with the op, when you quick scope, you're literally scoping quickly and then trying to shoot as fast as possible, right? Well, what I'm trying to tell you is, when I quick scope with the valve index, I can see it faster. When I shoot and see as fast as I possibly can, I shoot too fast. I see it too fast for the game. I see it faster than the game registers it as a scoped shot. So what that means is, it's pretty much, I'm not using the scope, because I saw this. Yes, I saw the scope, and I fired as soon as I saw the scope, but the game didn't register it as a scope shot. So my bullet went like a mile that way because it thought I was no scoping the shot. So you're able to see things so fast before they actually happen, is kind of what I'm trying to tell you. You see things faster than they register in the game. Does that make sense? So the headset has a higher capacity than the game does, right? So you're able to see things at their fastest before they actually register in the game. And that's why you get, you've heard some people complain about no regs, no registers. Oh, my DT shot didn't register. It's because you saw the stuff. Everything looks faster here, right? And so it's very interesting. So it's, anyways, the op is a super weapon that just benefits differently. And it might be that 20 frames per second. And the difference is, the biggest to notice when you're obviously running Quest 2 native versus, Valve Index. So the op is one big one. Like, I was always decent with the op, but like when I hadn't even been practicing with the op, but when I get on the index, like I'm quick scoping like the best, you know what I mean? Like, at least I feel like I am. Like, I'm able to shoot that fast. I was never able to shoot that fast. I was able to shoot accurately, but not that fast. I'm able to do the op jump shots, grabbing on a ledge, throw myself a peek shoot. I'm able to do that without even practicing because the headset, it just, it registers things so fast. So the op is you get a major benefit there. And I'm guessing it's just that extra 20 frames per second versus the PCVR on the Quest 2. Okay. The DT. Oh boy. I did a DT reload video, and I think I even said it there, but it's way easier to reload on the Valve Index, the DT, effortless. I'm barely flicking this thing, right? However, when I was on the Quest 2 native, particularly, I'm like throwing my shoulder and my elbow into it. My arm literally gets tired. I'm not one of those young kids who can throw their elbow out 1,000 times a day. And so the Quest 2 native is way worse than the Valve Index reload. However, the PCVR on the Quest 2, the DT reload, it gets better. Okay, and so the difference between the Quest 2 PCVR and the Valve Index is very minimal. I honestly think it's very, very, very minimal. So that's good news. So if you had to compare DT versus the two headsets, PCVR Quest 2 versus Valve Index, then there really is no difference. Okay, op, I still believe there is that difference. Okay, the AK, the P90 for me, and this one's probably a bit more subjective. I honestly don't think it matters, right? But for me, those full auto kind of weapons also are better on the Valve Index, and that, to me, I already mentioned it, is probably just because of the frame rate. Okay, now we talked about specific weapons. All the other weapons, honestly, are about the same, I'd say. Oh, the Sako. the Sako. So this, that Sako is my main weapon. And when I was on the Quest 2, you can see some of my clips I posted, and I was beasting it. And I was at the top of my game with the Sako. I didn't need any other weapon. I could use the Sako close range. I didn't need any other weapon. Now, after I've been switching back and forth every day, after having these nice things, I lost my Sako play. I'm going to be straight honest with you. I lost it. And so, yes, I'm able to shoot the Sako really well, obviously, but I'm not beasting it like I was then. All I needed was a Sako. I didn't need any other dang gun, except, DT, obviously, up close, but Sako play was amazing. I lost it. The reason I lost it because the Valve Index controllers are so very different. Okay, and this is where we're getting kind of we've answered the first question, right? Is PCVR better? And we talked about why, right? And just to summarize, if we didn't, PCVR is better because you get better graphics, as in you better frame rate, better visual quality. Link cable plugged in the Quest 2 is the fastest because you have lower lag. The other two, virtual desktop AirLink for the Quest 2, solid. Valve Index, with PCVR, that's the only option, right? So the problem with the Valve Index, and this is my subjectivity, right, is the grips. So the Quest 2 has a button that you all know and love. I love this damn button. The problem with the Valve Index is there is no button, right? Where is the button? Oh yes, it's sensitive. It's actually really cool because it's pressure sensitive. So you can get individual fingers, and some games can do that, right? And you can actually adjust this before I start complaining about it. You can make it low sensitivity, so just a tap will do it. Or you can make it hard, so you have to really squeeze it, but you're probably going to break this thing if you're squeezing it really hard, for half a year. And these things are not cheap, just like the Quest 2 controllers, and they're never in stock, so you never want to break one of these, but these break just the same as the Quest 2s. So just heads up, it's a really weird setup because you have to do this, and you know how often we do this in the game. I every morning I wake up, I have it's not, I don't know if you call it carpal tunnel, but it's tendonitis in my hands, and my hands ouch. Because I do this on my left hand, particularly, so that's the climbing hand. I do this 2,000 times a day if I'm playing for 3 hours, 4 hours. So it's that is really hard on your hand to do when you're older like me. Whereas you've just pressed this button on, it's so much easier, right? And so it gets really tiring just physically tiring doing this. And you have to do this really fast sometimes because you got to pick stuff up. And oh boy, it hurts. I've died. I can count the number of times I've died probably in the past month from trying to pick stuff up and incorrectly doing it. Maybe I picked something up on accident. I actually did this very recently. It was in public. I picked something up on accident when all I had to do was shoot the person. I accidentally walked into something. I was gripping too hard because I was aiming. And because you naturally, when you want to aim, you don't want to close. You want to close your hand a little bit, but I was squeezing too hard when I control it, even with setting my sensitivity up. And so I picked up a sword, and I was like, "Oh crap, I'm screwed!" And then I had a mental meltdown, and I just got shot in the face. So it's real. These things are really weird to get used to. If you jump on from the Quest 2, it is probably going to take you a month to get used to. Okay, so. Do I use this now? Yes, obviously. But my playstyle is honestly very different now than on the Quest 2. And so what has this done to me? Well, this pressure sensitivity has honestly slowed me down a little bit. And this is kind of why I'm saying slower players. One of the reasons why I'm saying slower players will be better on the Valve Index. The second thing, and this is a physical kind of thing, this is heavier than this by a long shot. This is like... Oh man, what can I say? Let me do a fair comparison. I don't want to say it's 2 times heavier than this one because you could check the specs and I'm almost positive it's not. But this feels substantially heavier than this one. Okay, like 1.2, like 1.5 times heavier. Honestly, it feels bulkier. Okay, and so with that you move slower. Like when I'm climbing, like. My arms actually get tired. I haven't gone to the gym recently. But anyways, like it gets more tiring physically climbing versus this. Like I can climb so much faster. I can fling this down so much faster than this. Okay, so it just might be the ergonomics too. So anyways, physically harder to move this around faster than this. Okay, I'm not even joking. There is a difference. So that is another reason why I also play slower now. So getting into it, the third thing that kind of sucks about the Valve Index controllers, and it's not just the controllers, really the tracking system. I have base stations. I have 1, 2. I used to have 3 base stations. My third one was giving me issues. So I'm using 2 base stations now. And they're external cameras that are monitoring where these controllers are, right? But the problem is the Valve Index has so good tracking that you have to aim steadier. So what do I mean by that? Well, the tracking is so precise that when I'm holding my hand out like this, you can see my hand kind of jittering around a little bit. That jitter translates to in-game. So what that means in-game is when I'm holding my dang Socko, I have to really contract these muscles, and I have a whole strategy for holding my Socko now. I hold my elbow close in, so I'm planted, and then I tighten these muscles up, and I try to loosen my hand muscles, because if I tighten this too much, what happens? I'm gripping, and that can screw me up. And if I'm gripping this too hard, then this moves around. I have to have a whole new strategy for how I aim my dang Socko. Okay, because it jitters, and you can see the jitter. I essentially have to, like a real gun, I have to exhale when I'm shooting sometimes, and that is a real trick when you're shooting a real gun, like a real rifle. You exhale, so you take a deep breath in, and you exhale while you're shooting, and you press the trigger while you're exhaling. And even when I'm pressing the trigger, I'm trying to fire like a real gun, where I'm not moving the rest of my hand. I'm holding all that steady, and just my trigger finger moves. And I don't really want to have to do that for a video game if I don't have to. Less is more, right? So I have to do all of that. I have to compensate for all that to have my awesome, beastly Socko aim and fire that I was doing before, okay? And the problem with the pressure sensitivity also comes to the reload. When I'm doing the reload, my really, really rapid fire Socko reload, I can't find the other dang controller right now, I fudge it sometimes on the pressure sensitive, thing when I'm going with the Valve Index controller, and I'm trying to reload as fast as I can, because sometimes I'm going so fast that I'm just not consciously. You have to keep really consistent pressure sensitivity. If you screw up on that sensitivity, you might miss the reload. And I do this even in tournament games sometimes. fudge. like and so like on the grip button on the Quest 2 button, you can't mess this up because you just press the button. But like if you are just like you're in the heat of battle, people are fighting you, you know, 3 people are charging you, like you have to keep consistent, and that's just really difficult sometimes. And so that's another reason why my Sako play hurt from the Valve Index for Oculus Quest 2. And so for me, it's easier to shoot the Sako on the Quest 2 versus the Valve Index. That's one gun, maybe honestly the only gun. Maybe the only gun where the Quest 2 is better for it, okay? So the Sako is probably the only gun where the Quest 2 is better than the Valve Index, okay? And that's the only one I can think of. Ever since the DT nerf, the difference between these two headsets has been leveled, so that's a good thing, I'd say. And so I think we've covered essentially all the guns, okay? And that's a good thing. And that's really what you're here for. Which guns are better? We summed it up. OP. For me, OP is better on the Valve Index. AK is better on the Valve Index. P90 is better on the Valve Index. DT, same nowadays with the nerf to the DT. Quest 2, the Sako, for me, is better. Okay, and that's subjective, obviously. All right. All the other guns I think are about the same. So it is what it is. Okay. So we talked about that. Now we are already getting into comparing why the Valve Index is better or worse than the Quest 2, right? And vice versa. And specifically for playstyle, right? I talked about why these, you know, it's hard to physically climb fast, for example, or move fast with the Valve Index controller. It's because yes, it's kind of ergonomical because it goes around your hand, but it feels bulkier than the Quest 2. Whether or not it's super heavy versus this, I can't tell you. I'm not looking at those specs, but this, it just feels heavier, so my arms get tired. I'm not able to fling my arms as fast. Whereas when I'm using the Quest 2, I'm flinging my arms, like flicking them pretty much. And it's just faster. So faster play style, right? Better on the Quest 2 for the controllers, but not only that. For me, the cord is it's a deal breaker. It's not a deal breaker because obviously I'm playing with a cord, but it's a deal breaker when it comes to fast play style. Like if you are a fast play style, you don't want to be constrained by the cord because you spin around, you're probably moving around a little bit in your environment. And I'm not naming players, but because that's not the point of this. But I know several best players in the world who use the Quest 2 who are fast players, right? Just subjectively, and this is totally subjective. I was going to go through one popped out one and kind of like name people who use this and that, but I was finding it difficult to confirm which they use, and they always change. People always change here and there. First off, answering is PCVR better. If you're going to look for any objective data, if you went through the first 2 or 3, 4 pages of one popped out one, most people use PCVR. Not all of them, but most do, if you had to really look through it. Okay. Now, Quest 2 versus Valve Index, I think I can't tell you a breakdown there because I honestly don't know. But there's plenty of Quest 2 people, at the top, so it's okay. Like that difference is not that bad. But what I've seen from the top players is that the faster players, professional players, generally use the Quest 2, okay? And it suits their playstyle really well because, like I said, all these things, right? You don't have a cord. You're able to move these controllers physically quickly. The headset, by the way, I didn't talk about the headset. The Valve Index feels like a helmet. When it's on my head, it feels like a helmet. So what do I do in game? How does this affect me? I look up less. I look down less because this thing just feels bulkier. It is heavier. Well, it depends what you got in your Quest 2, but like this is heavier than the Quest 2. So it's bulkier. It's bigger physically, so it messes you up that way. When you put it on, it feels like you want to play slower, and so I was a faster player on the Quest 2, but then when I switched to Valve Index, I became a slower player because of how bulky it is, because of the controllers. But not only that, I get the benefit of the graphics, so I don't feel like I have to play faster, if that makes sense. I am able to play slower because of the advantages of the frame rate. And so anyways, the Valve Index made me play slower now. So if you look at some of the fast best players in the world, a lot of them use the Quest 2. Then when you look at some of the best players in the world who are slower playstyles, now they're still fast, don't get me wrong, right? They're faster than a lot of players. But compared to the other best players in the world, you can consider them slow play styles. I'm not naming names, but those generally use the Valve Index. And it's kind of this trend. I don't want to say it's like a confirmed thing. It's like a trend. And whether or not that's because they're slow players or, it's because the headset did the same thing to me as it did to them, as it slowed them down from the Quest 2, when I put the Quest 2 on, I feel faster, and I switch every day, right? When I put the Quest 2 on, I feel faster and I feel invincible because I feel like I can fly faster, even though I know it's not true. So what happens is I end up charging and doing stupid stuff on this, in terms of movement, because I feel faster, because I'm actually moving physically faster in the real world, but I put myself in stupid situations because I was playing too fast, which is kind of funny. But anyways, so I believe that the Valve Index just naturally makes you a slower player, which is not a bad thing because you're still kicking ass on this because the frame rate is faster, and so you get to see the enemy before they see you. The difference is not as big versus the PC VR with the Quest 2, but it's still noticeable. I'm not afraid when I'm on the Valve Index. I'm not afraid to just go one-on-one in on a gunfight. If I know the enemy's full health and I'm full health, and I know it's one-on-one, I'm not afraid to go in head to head, just walk in the open versus somebody. It's not good habit, mind you, versus good players, but it's I can just walk in the open and I'm confident I'm going to see that person before me. That plus my aim, which is really good, right? They ain't going to win, I know, most of the time, unless they're another top player. And I can tell who I play against has a Valve Index. I can just tell because it feels like they're able to shoot me equivalently, if that makes sense. It's very obvious to me because I've been doing this for a long time, right? I've been using these headsets for months, switching back and forth, looking for the differences. And I can obviously tell who's on PCVR versus native. It's so obvious when I'm turning a corner and poor people on native, they see me and I was already shooting at them and we turn the corner at the same time. It's blatantly obvious, okay? So is it cheating? No, it's not cheating. It's how it is. It's esports, esport FPS, the same concept. This has been around for generations, so not generations, but for years, many, many years. And this is just part of the game. Younger players, they don't have the money to buy all these nice, things sometimes and fancy computers, but they have the cognitive processing, the mental skills, the mental speed and physical speed and prowess to be able to do these things better than older players. But older players usually have money because you got jobs and all that kind of stuff, right? So I see it as a perfect balance. You get the young players who can't get the top of the end equipment sometimes, and then you got the older players who just need a little edge to be on somewhat level playing field, and it kind of works out. It kind of works out just fine. And so the answer, does PCVR make you a better player? Honestly, yes, it does. How does it help? Well, it helps you react faster in situations, okay? Really is the answer to it. So we answered the question of play styles, okay? Faster play styles generally are more suitable for the Quest 2 for many reasons. Like we said, once again, controllers, headset, no cable, which, those things are really, you think they're minor, but when you add all that up, it really makes a difference when you put this sucker on. And so you're probably asking yourself, okay, is it worth the upgrade? So let's say you're on Quest 2 native, work down up. What should I get? If I'm a Quest 2 native, first off, let's ask, should you upgrade? And so, when I was a young kid, and this is, I've been gaming for a while, thinking about computers for a while, when I was a young kid, I saw a Gundam, the show. I don't watch anime anymore, but when I was young, I saw a Gundam, and it's the pilot was all better than his Gundam, and oh, he was so good of a pilot that his Gundam limited him, his robot, his fighting machine. So what I'm trying to tell you is, should you upgrade? Well, you should only upgrade when you're getting to a point where you feel like your skills are limited by the headset. Okay, and if you don't know if that is happening to you, then that means you haven't hit it. Okay, so for example, Spray and Pray, my partner, that guy is an awesome player, like solid player. He has an amazing computer, but his internet, because he's always at a hotel, he works, so he's always at a hotel playing. He doesn't have the Starlink internet yet. What he's getting, and anyways, he is an amazing player on Quest 2 native when he gets used to it. But he knows that he's kind of hit a ceiling in terms of, because he's got strategy and tactics down. He really needs that half the speed. I need to shoot this person in the head. Fraction of a second kind of skill. Those kind of skills. When you're past tactics, strategy, and you have to work on those split-second reactions to shoot someone in the head. Those kind of things. That's where he knows he has to get to a PC eventually, because he's kind of capping off a little bit. He's still able to play it, the top level, obviously. He's like, honestly, he will be better than me once he gets his PC working, once he gets his internet working, that Starlink sent to him, internet. So he, like, better skilled player, at least. So you will know whether you should upgrade. If you don't know, then you haven't hit that ceiling yet. Okay, period. And if you're feeling fine, don't. If you don't, I'm not telling you to get anything here. I'm not trying to sell anything, right? If you don't want to, don't do it. But this video is really for those people who are like on the fence, like, oh, I'm considering doing this. Should I do it? If you have, my answer to you is, should you? If you have more, skills to learn that aren't limited by the headset, learn those first. And then when you cap out and you feel like, I don't want to say you got nothing to learn, but you feel like you really need to get to that point where those split-second things make a difference, then, like, yes, that's when you should get a computer from native. Okay, computer from native. So now you are PCVR. Now, whether you should use AirLink, virtual desktop, or link cable, that's up to you. If you're okay with the cable, just play link because you get lower latency. But if you benefit from having the virtual desktop or the AirLink wireless, and the cable is a bigger deal breaker than having that extra lag or latency, then just go for the wireless. That's up to you. But should you upgrade from the Quest 2 to the Valve Index? And my answer to you is, that's a big investment. That's $1,200 pretty much. My answer to you is, if you are a Quest 2 PCVR player, and you are at that same point where you are kind of like, no, I don't think you should. That's too much money to go from such a small difference to a big difference. I now have both of these. Would I have, like, if I knew, like, well, I got this for work, like, so it's kind of, I have these things to test. But if I didn't have, like, if I had a Quest 2 PCVR and I knew the things I knew now, I would not upgrade, okay, from the Quest 2 to the Valve Index. I just would not, because the Quest 2 is just fine when it's plugged into the PC or the AirLink or virtual desktop. But if you all have money to throw around and you have a slower play style, to be honest with you, the Valve Index, if you are able to utilize this at its highest potential, the Valve Index is going to be better for you, because you're going to be able to see people faster. You're going to be able to react faster. So there is a benefit, period. Okay. Now, the Vario Aero. The Vario Aero, I don't want to say can only go to 120 frames per second, but I did not really test it because I was kind of stuck. But I don't think you can push the Vario Aero to 144 frames per second. It was only meant to be run at 90 frames per second. So you already need a top of the line, and I have a video on the Vario Aero. You already need a top of the line computer to push that to 120. I don't think pushing that to 144 frames per second is possible. And that's why I say the Valve Index is still better for population 1 than the Vario Aero. Now, if I had a choice, like, I can't use the Vario Aero because that is strictly for work. But if I had a choice, like, just which one I would want to choose between the Valve Index and Vario Aero, honestly, I like the Vario Aero just because of how beautiful it looks. So, like, I'm personally willing to sacrifice the 20 frames per second, but the Valve Index is technically the best one for population 1. Okay, still, to this day, right? And so there it is. So we've kind of come to a point now where we've talked about all the goodies. You know, which should you get? Should you upgrade? Is it worth it? And that's only something you can answer, right? But if you're on the fence, you got money to throw around. Should you upgrade from the Quest 2 to the Valve Index? If it is noticeable, particularly for a slow play style, there is benefit. Like I am now using, so I've been switching back and forth. I've been trying in tournaments even. I come and I'm sorry for my poor tournament partners who I come in with a different headset and I go sorry y'all, like I'm playing like crap today, like I'm on this headset, I'm on that. These poor friends of mine. So anyways, what I have concluded with for myself is that even though what I have concluded for myself is that the Valve Index is better for me. I play better on the Valve Index than I do with the Quest 2 overall at the end of the day. Okay, yes, I lost my Socko play. I'm starting to get it back slowly on the Valve Index, but it's so difficult because there's so many things to control. Like I said, I have to control my shoulder muscles to keep steady. I have to control my hand, finger muscles to make sure all this stuff is nice and steady. I have to make sure I'm keeping my pressure sensitivity consistent on these super fast reloads where I'm shooting the gun as fast as possible. And even with that 20 extra frames per second where I'm able to kind of react faster and shoot a little faster, or like visually, cognitively recognize the sight dot with my Socko faster on the Valve Index, overall, my performance in game is still better on the Quest 2. Okay, so I lost my Socko play, which hurts me dearly, but everything else got better. Like I'm using the AK. The AK is now my main weapon. Actually, I'm using the AK and I'm beasting with the AK, and so like I'm even using the AK close range sometimes, and it's just really working out for me. So just certain guns are better for me on the Valve Index, so I concluded that was overall better. I play overall better. I was playing too fast on the Quest 2 where I was doing stupid things, but that's just me, right? So we've had a long video by now. Thank you if you stuck around. But if you have any questions, feel free to. I hope this is the one and all video that kind of solidifies the deal, right? Because everyone's curious which is better and what for what. We discussed specifically today which headset's better for which weapon, at least for me. But then I have more testing probably experience than anyone out. I don't say anyone, but anyone at this level of play out there probably, especially considering I also had the Vario Aero, so I'm able to test all these high-level headsets at their maximum. I now have top of the line computer, and I didn't always have that. So I started from the bottom. Now I'm here. I started from the Quest 1. I went from the Quest 2. I went from the Quest 2 laptop, mid-grade. Well, it's actually a high-end laptop, but it's like mid-grade compared to a desktop. So mid-grade laptop to then a high-end computer with the Vario Aero, and then a high-end computer with Valve Index and Quest 2. So I've tried the whole spectrum, okay? And just I've concluded that the Valve Index is the best for me, period now, for the reasons I say. The Quest 2, though, is still awesome, and if you get used to it, you don't need the Valve Index. Okay. So once again, thank you all for watching. I hope there needs to be no other videos of this because this was a long one, right? But thank you all for sticking around. Leave any questions you have in the comment section, and I'll answer them if I didn't get through in this video.